Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Now when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the tradition of the elders. And they do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. And there are also many other traditions that they observe, the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not live according to the traditions of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" He said to them, "Isaiah prophesies rightly about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines? You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition.'" Then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside a person that by going in can defile. But the things that come out are what defile. For it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, threat, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
You may be seated. A little over 3 years ago, I was traveling from Iowa to Illinois. I had interviewed already with the call committee, so this was my second time coming to Illinois, and I was coming to be interviewed by the council, the Bethany Council, for this position as senior pastor. And for what was on the agenda, what was the plan for the day, was there was going to be a meal at Barb and Mel Meyer's home, and after the meal there would be an interview of me at the table. So I remember a lot of things from that day, but I distinctly remember Barb coming up to me and being really excited, and she said that the food is catered from Portillo's. And she was really excited. Everybody else was excited. I have a confession. At that time, I didn't know what Portillo's was. So I kind of told a lie and said, "That is great." I confess. There's another thing that I remember, and there was a table with wine glasses and wine on the side, and I looked at it, and I saw that other people were drinking wine. And so I kind of had this conversation in my mind. Should I have a glass of wine? Should I not? What's the perception? If I have a glass of wine, I should probably just have one to keep my wits about me. And hopefully if I have one, they'll think I'm easygoing. I tell this story because it relates to the gospel. Our congregation really doesn't mind if I drink wine or not, but there are faith traditions that would call that a sin if I drank alcohol. And there are other different traditions with rules and regulations of the way you dress, the songs you sing, how you sing them. There's all kinds of things. In today's gospel lesson, the Pharisees and the scribes are giving Jesus a hard time. They were giving him a hard time because the disciples were going against the tradition. They were upset because the disciples didn't wash their hands. Now, of course, washing your hands is a good thing, but at that time they didn't know the things we know now about germs. So this wasn't about a hygiene thing that Jesus was upset about. The reason the Pharisees were upset was because the disciples were not following the tradition. The Pharisees were mad because they were supposed to be the authority, and the disciples were supposed to follow that and respect the traditions. Sometimes we think we can be the ones to have the power to declare who is okay with God and who is not. Jesus was more concerned about what was in people's hearts than what was on the outside. The scary thing today is we are the religious authorities. We as pastors, as staff members, as lay leaders, as congregation members, we are the ones who have religious authority and make rules. I have another story to share with you. I'm embarrassed about it, but I'm going to share it with you because it has to do with this. When I was a director of Youth and Family Ministry in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, the pastors were concerned that the children in our congregation were making too much noise and it was becoming distracting to the sermon and kind of the worship. And so they kind of brainstormed and talked about, they came to the decision that we should make sure that in the bulletin it's written that we have a nursery. And then they had charged me with the idea that when the child seemed to be making noise and parent was maybe getting upset, that I should go over and let them know there was a nursery. I wasn't thrilled about this, and I was kind of new to the congregation, so I was respectful and followed what they had asked me to do. So it was a Wednesday Lenten service. It was a morning service, and a young mom had her child, and she was struggling with her child. And I got the look from the pastor to go and see if you can take care of that situation. And so I went over, and as gently as I could, I said that we had a nursery if she needed. Well, immediately, she gave me a look. And I just wanted to take back what I said, but I couldn't. She got up and went to the nursery, and I felt terrible. I just felt awful about what happened. And I don't know if she ever came back to church after that. Not proud of that. Sometimes we start out being followers and imitators of Christ, but then we forget who we are. We confuse our rules, our fears, and our likes with the will of God. We gather on Sunday and worship together. We see ourselves as a reflection of Christ. But we sometimes walk away and forget what that looks like. Sometimes we don't even get out the doors before it happens, before we judge someone or say something cruel or do something that's sinful. James said, "If any say they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless." Is our religion worthless? I don't think so. But I do think we get off track sometimes. When Jesus spoke with the Pharisees, he called them hypocrites for caring more about outward appearances than what was there in their hearts. How things look like on the outside didn't matter to Christ. And I think it shouldn't matter to us either. One day, an expert on the law asked Jesus, you know this, "What is the most important commandment?" Jesus said, "You should love your Lord, your God, with all your soul, your heart, and mind." In other words, with everything you got. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Everything else hangs on these two commandments. We can boil our entire religion down to loving God and loving our neighbor. To love our neighbor with the kind of love that insists your neighbor's rights are protected. A love that insists her dignity is expected. A love that insists that his children are fed. A love, the kind of love that overcomes the uncomfort of someone who looks different than us, that looks different than you or I. A love that looks beyond somebody who dresses differently or listens to different music or believes in different things. I'm talking about Jesus kind of love that insists on a religion that treats every person as God's precious child. Let's walk out of our church today and remember to love God and to love our neighbor just as Jesus taught us. Amen.